Investing has always raised the same big questions. Which themes deserve my money and when is it time to move on? In this episode, we'll explore how AI is changing that conversation. Welcome back to our AI Summer Course podcast. I'm joined again by Mike Chen. He's Robeco's head of Alternative Alpha, and new to the mic is Sam Brasser. He's portfolio manager for Robeco's Dynamic Theme Machine ETF, Robeco's most AI native strategy. And together we'll take a look at the tools, signals, and real-world client challenges shaping next-generation quant investing, and discuss why education and explainability matter just as much as the code. Welcome, Sam. Welcome, Mike.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. So, Mike, so much has happened since the launch of ChatGPT back then. Since then, which brand new AI-related capabilities have become routine since?
Yeah, thanks for asking. So I would say a lot, actually. It's almost too much to list. I hope I don't forget some. But, for example, nowadays, right, using AI, or more specific machine learning, to predict asset prices, is almost routine, right? We certainly have deployed in multiple of our strategies using various types of NLP to analyze not just textual information, but audio information. That's also in production. We certainly use a lot of large language model or generative AI into our processes,
yes.
Such as, helping us write engagement letters, summarize textual information.
Yes.
And actually, we're now beginning to develop agentic capability. So we now have LLM coupled with functions that can access our internal data, so that when you want to pull something up, right, where you want to run a quick history of how a specific signal performed, you just type it into a natural language, ask an LLM, and we have that deployed. So this is all very, very exciting.
So in other words, it's not just on the quant side, but also on the fundamental investing side that these tools are being deployed.
Absolutely.
So we will be speaking to Sam shortly about the Dynamic Theme Machine, but this wonderful new product emanates from the incubator, the Robeco incubator. What is that? How does it work?
Yeah. So the idea of incubator is this. Next Gen is really intended to push the frontier of what's possible in terms of investment technology, right? And it's like we're designing a brand new airplane. And we do all of our testing on historical data in a simulated environment, but sooner or later you have to fly it out for real when you build an airplane, right? And for investment strategy, you got to run it on real money. So this is what the incubator is designed to do. So Robeco has funded the incubator, and we're able to basically run our strategies using live money, Robeco's own house money, to see how well it performs. Does it perform up to our expectation, or does it actually have certain things that we need to improve on? And this is how we launch and iterate in a very, very safe environment. This is, there's a term in technology called dog fooding. Basically, eat your own dog food. This is kind of like our version of dog fooding, right? Before we bring it out to general public for general people to invest, we want to make sure that the design is as good as it can be. So we want to do it in a very, very safe and responsible manner, and this is how we do it.
So Sam, that's the background to the Dynamic Theme Machine. But now, when you designed it, having spoken to clients, what was the major pain point that you heard from client conversations that you felt you needed to solve with this product?
Yeah, sure. Maybe let me take a step back, because here we're talking about thematic investing. And thematic investing is basically identifying changes in the world and getting exposure to companies that benefit from those changes. So for instance, this podcast is about AI. That in itself is a theme, right? It is driving a lot of revenue growth for a lot of companies, and it's driving a lot of stock market returns. So that is thematic investing. And what when we speak to clients, what we hear quite often is this challenge of detecting themes early. And we know there's numerous themes out there. The world is very fast moving. So there can be hundreds of themes out there. You need to detect them early to benefit really from them. But also, once you have detected those themes, to enter in a timely manner and exit them in a timely manner. And combine them in a well-behaved portfolio. And that is quite challenging. Sometimes investors miss themes or they're too late to them. So if you go back to COVID, for instance, vaccine stocks, they did very well during COVID. But when we look at fund flow data, when are investors going in and out of funds, we see that they actually entered these type of themes quite late, when most of the good returns have already been realized. Yeah, and that's something we want to tackle with the dynamic theme machine. Yeah.
Maybe I could just add to that. So I think this is what's quite unique about this, right?
Yeah.
Because Robeco is a investment house with both fundamental and quant capability. So, I'm a quant, obviously, and as proud as I am, obviously, as proud as I am about quant's capability, right? AI at present day still has a lot that's lacking, right? And then that's why we're very happy to have some fundamental experts such as Sam being on this product, because it is much easier for humans to first of all, AI do make mistakes. But, it's much easier for humans to detect false positives when it comes to a theme. For example, AI throws us a theme, and if it's obviously wrong, it's easier for Sam to say, okay, that doesn't make sense, than to detect false negative meanings that, okay, I don't know what themes are out there. What do you think it possibly could be, right? So using this, we're very cleverly blend in what AI is strong for, and what humans are strong for.
Okay. Guys, time for the rapid fire quiz. I have to ask you this with a fundamental and a quant sitting together, and you've just collaborated on a new product. What have you learned from each other? Sam, what did you learn from the quant team?
Oh, they are
bunch of weirdos.
I can see him counting his words.
Is to embrace ideas even though you're skeptical about them first.
Mike?
Well, I've learned that actually quant and fundamental bring very complementary and unique skills to the table. So together, it's a pretty powerful combination.
What is the chance that NLP could spot a theme before a human portfolio manager does? Mike, now you've got to prove.
I think this is a very high possibility.
Okay.
Depends on the human, obviously, right? but I think it's a very, very high probability. Yeah.
What do you think,
I've
Sam?
seen themes that I hadn't thought about before.
And that you could take home and use in your daily work.
Yeah, to some extent, because it depends a bit, because some of them are quite small and niche, right? So the amount of companies you can invest in, and then sometimes there are also smaller ones, can be limited. So if you have a big fund, then maybe you can't invest in them.
Right.
But yeah, there's good ideas coming from it.
Multiple choice question. What's the most likely reason a theme would exit a portfolio? First of all, public interest drops. B, regulatory changes. C, a decline in signal strength. Or D, Sam gets bored of it.
C and D
C.
combined.
Yeah.
No.
Definitely D.
Oh, wow.
Let's see.
See.
C.
Let's see, yes.
Decline in signal strength. True or false? You could use AI to compose music before you could use it to recognize cats.
True.
Apparently, I'm told it is true. Composing music was simpler than image classification in the early 2000s.
Wow.
And here's a DTM question. What's the one thing the DTM strategy can't do yet?
Well, you can't buy your groceries for you.
Yeah, it cannot buy your groceries. Yeah.
That's
Can
some way
also
to
not
go
make
there.
music.
Or recognize cats.
Mike, we should work on that.
It's DTM
When is it gonna sing to me?
2.0.
Thanks, guys. Well done. So if we look at the part that AI is good at, as Mike described it, Sam, so how does that work? How does AI uncover these themes?
So for us, it all starts with massive amount of data, right? And for this particular product, we have a lot of data at Robeco. For this particular product, we use what companies talk about. So what they say on earnings calls, what they say in interviews with their management, what they say on roadshows, on conferences, etc. And that's where it starts, right? So that is kind of the pond we fish in, so to say. And then we have an AI model, and I won't spill the secret sauce. That AI model goes into all that text, and hundreds of thousands of text, and finds commonalities, things that are different. It not only counts things obviously, but it also knows how something is spoken about, if it's a positive in a positive manner or negative manner, and then it compiles basically a list of themes from all that text, and that is the themes that we eventually link to the companies that we can invest in.
Are there any particular themes out now that you especially excited about? Maybe they're fresh and new, you hadn't quite thought of them or thought of them in that way?
Yeah, one of them is one of the themes that is quite exciting, I think, is satellite communication. So what you can see, I mean, if you're like an outdoorsy person, maybe you've already noticed this, or if you got into a very gnarly situation far away, then your phone has like this little symbol of a satellite, and basically means that your phone is connected to a satellite.
We're all grabbing our phones right now. Yes.
And you could, if you need to, make, for instance, an emergency call.
Okay.
Right? It's not like, I can scroll on TikTok in the middle of the Gobi Desert or in the Sahara. No, to some extent, there's certain types of phone that can do that, but that's not like common. But if you look at what several companies are building, and also in terms of satellite constellations, but also what kind of chips go into phones that are able to communicate more and more with these satellites. Maybe 5 years, 10 years down the line, we'll have reliable, higher bandwidth, data to our phones from satellites. So I think that's a pretty niche theme that we have picked up, and that is quite exciting, I think.
So in problem solving with this dynamic theme machine, so it's about finding those themes that you might not be aware of. Mike, what about timing? Because as I mentioned right at the beginning, it's one of the age-old issues in investing. So how does AI solve the timing issue?
Yeah, so great question. So I think, we think there are two challenges to the traditional way you do thematic investment, right? First is finding the themes, and second is deciding when to enter and when to exit. Right. And, thematic investment by definition is conviction investment, right? You believe this is something that's going to pay off over the long term. So you really want to hold on to it. But, I think what's difficult about human investment is that sometimes emotion do get in the way, right? So, for example, if you buy e-commerce, let's just use a theme that everybody knows about. If you buy Amazon in 1995, you win an IPO, you would have made a tremendous amount of return, right? But in the year 2000, it would have dropped 90%, and that would have been pretty painful. So what we do is we couple thematic investment detection along with quant valuation, the quant modeling, to make sure that not only is it a good theme, but it's a good investment, right? And the two are actually separate. So a theme is something that will trend, but doesn't mean that the stock in it are good to buy at the moment. For example, Sam mentioned that quantum computing, right? It might be a really, really good theme that might pay off over the next several decades. But at this moment, the companies that are associated with quantum computing are a bit rich. So it does not mean it's a good entry point. So we have quantitative, and as you know, we've been doing quant investment for, 30 years, and, our quant models works pretty well, right? So, so we use that to actually help us make entry and exit decisions.
Okay. Sam, we'll speak a bit more about the exit decision. So what if the model is telling you need to exit, but you from a fundamental perspective and just a passion perspective reckon, no, this still has plenty of legs?
Then we still exit.
Follow the model.
Well, that's the investment process, right? And there's a reason you exit. And what is one of the nice things of the way we built it, I think, is that we can break down like why it exits. What are the signals that are driving this exit? Are the stocks are they very overvalued? Is share price momentum waning? Maybe the profitability of these companies in that theme is deteriorating, etc., etc. Those are all signals that feed into that decision to enter or exit the theme. And then we stick to that.
Okay. Now, coming back to the theme detection topic that you mentioned, Mike, So my understanding is that themes are by nature quite narrative driven. And so Sam described, for instance, following earnings calls or, discussions around a certain topic, and it's going to pick up words. And if there's, sort of momentum to that critical mass, maybe this is a theme. But what if it's just a fad and it's hype without any substance, but the model's picking it up as a theme?
Yeah. So I think this is where the quant process really helps, right? Quant is by definition not emotional. So, we don't judge a theme investment purely by how much is it being mentioned, the narrative around it, right? What companies are saying, what the analysts are writing about, what the news articles are writing about, but also by is the company itself worthy of investment, right?
So
by
it comes back to that point.
Fundamental metrics.
Yeah.
Furthermore, the name of the investment style is quantitative, right? So it means that we measure everything. We measure all its different kinds of exposure. So we're able to rather control the risk profile relatively well. I mean, you never say you never experience a bad return, right? But I would say that we're relatively aware of the type of exposures we're taking on, and if we're not comfortable with it, we cut it. So this is a way how we manage this strategy.
Yeah, in terms of also avoiding very hypey themes in the quantitative model, certain things balance each other, right? So you can have a theme and the companies in it have extremely good momentum in terms of profit growth, share price momentum, etc. That could be balanced by a value signal, which picks up that maybe these companies in these themes are way overvalued. So these kind of balance each other, and then maybe this is a theme that a lot of companies are loss making. Then it will not score well on, for instance, quality. So those things balance each other, and I think that is helps in avoiding the very hypey themes. Yeah.
Sam, I believe CityWire reports that fund selectors have expressed concern that AI may be over-influencing managers in their investment decision-making. So how do you respond to that?
I think you have to scrutinize what goes on inside the AI, right? You cannot... I don't think you can take the outcome of an AI model, even if you build it yourself, just for granted, right? You have to look into what is driving it. And for us, that means that out of these texts that we talked earlier about, right, that we source the themes from, we can go into the model and pinpoint from which text this theme was identified from. So let's take mental and neurological health is one of the themes in our fund. We can go back to the text that specific theme was sourced from, and we see that this theme was sourced from a lot of documents, but we can look at 3. These snippets of text talked about neurological disorders, Huntington disease. Another company talked about Alzheimer's disease. They said that they had a lot of growth from the drugs that they developed for these diseases, etc. So then we can go back and we can actually see, okay, this is actually something companies are talking about, and they are benefiting from it. So I think that can serve as a feedback loop to get greater confidence in the AI model, and not just it spits something out and I'm gonna do what it says.
Right.
So actually to add more to what Sam said, right? Sam told you about how we detect themes at a specific point in time, but we do that for every single point in time, right? So we do it at every single when there's every single point in time we detect theme, and then we can see actually how these themes are trending. So for example, last quarter, right, we might see 3 companies talk about neurological disease and their treatments for it. But this quarter, these 3 companies still talk about the neurological disease treatments. And furthermore, there's 2 more companies talking about it. So now this theme is actually picking up momentum or picking up temperature, right? So this is actually how you detect not only theme, but which themes are emerging. Similarly, you can actually detect which themes are actually declining in popularity. Right. So this is one way to build in a time dimension into theme detection.
Standing back and just looking at how things have developed over the years. So, Mike, I know you'd have real-life experience of this. If you go back to the 1990s up to the 2000s, how long...
Well, in the 90s, I was mostly thinking about other things, just to be honest. But, yeah.
I was not doing much thinking in the 90s.
I wasn't doing much thinking also.
Dari also, it's so lovely. Mike, just stepping back, if you look over the years, just how quant investing has developed, and I know you've got a lot of experience going back to those earlier days also, it might have taken a lot of time for certain clients to be convinced of the whole quant experience and journey and to jump into that. Do you think it's going to be similar with AI, adding AI to the quant experience?
I definitely think educating clients is very, very important, right? And this is something that we at Robeco take very seriously. And we're very, very transparent to our clients about what's going on in their strategy. We provide as many tools as we possibly can in explaining explaining their strategy, the investment decisions, so on and so forth. I do think, AI is this new thing, but people are already using AI in their daily lives, right? I bet more than half of our clients are using GPT in their daily lives. They've been using, all these other tools. Actually, people are just using it. I think people are now more and more comfortable with technology in general. Obviously, when they trust you with the pension fund of their stakeholders, that's different, right? So there's work to be done here. But I do believe that as quant investment in general, and AI in particular, becomes more and more popular, people. The sort of the barrier that you need to overcome becomes less. There's much less skepticism than there was before. That's kind of my perception.
Makes sense.
I think one of the unique things about AI, and especially the way it's kind of spread, through all of us, is that you can basically have the best technology at your fingertips, right? Because these companies, they are like literally vying or competing for your attention with their best models. Obviously, some of them, the really good ones, they are behind paywalls, but still, you could pay 30 euros a month, and then you get the best ChatGPT model. And so that's different perhaps from, the internet, which rolled out also relatively quickly, but it took a while, before everyone was on the internet, etc. Now, literally, this technology, if you have a smartphone and you're connected to the internet, you can use it and you have the latest and greatest of it. So, that maybe helps also in self-education, people's understanding of what this technology is.
Yeah, I think this is illustrated by the adoption cycle, right? Like, I think ChatGPT was the quickest to reach 100 million user. And then previously it was, TikTok or whatever, right? It's like the adoption cycle is just increasing. I think people are just becoming more and more familiar as technology become more pervasive in their daily lives.
And super useful at the same time.
Yeah.
Well, guys, thank you so much. It's been fascinating listening to your insights on the future or even just the current aspects of AI in investing. Thanks.
Thank you very much for having us.
And that's our snapshot of today's trends in next generation quant. If you're curious about investing in the broader wave of AI movers and shakers, check out the second summer long read, which looks at Robeco's digital innovation strategy. And then join us for episode 3, where we leap even further forward and imagine what investing could look like in 2045 and beyond.